Sometimes the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And here's your host, Ben Adelberg.
Welcome to the Back of the Range Golf Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Adelberg. This is episode 106. Lots of interesting things happening in the golf world over the next couple of weeks. We have the Hero World Challenge, the President's Cup is next week, as well as the Korn Ferry Tour Q School Finals. Say that again really fast. So plenty of golf to watch and analyze. It's kind of felt a little bit slow the last couple of weeks, so definitely looking forward to watching some golf this weekend and next weekend. So nice little surprise for me this week. Got to visit again with Brandon Wu. Last time I saw him was at Hoylake when he led the U.S. Walker Cup team to victory at Royal Liverpool Golf Club. He's down here in South Florida getting ready for the Korn Ferry Tour Q School Finals. So lots of mojo heading his way, and everyone else traveling to Orange County National next weekend for the finals. Also, congrats to our friend Dottie Pepper. She was named the lead on-course reporter at CBS Sports recently. You're going to see a lot of her at the Masters and at all of the PGA Tour events in 2020. Nobody works harder at their craft than Dottie, so very exciting to see that news, and that actually ties in with some news related to the Back of the Range Golf Podcast. The first tournament that I'll be attending and covering in 2020 will be the Latin America Amateur Championship at Mayakoba. This tournament is being held next month. I'll be there checking out the field and visiting with some of the players. Geronimo Esteve will be representing Puerto Rico. He's a former guest of the podcast. My pal Ernie Marin, he's representing Nicaragua, along with former winners of the LAC, Toto Gana and Paul Chaplett. So, never been to Mexico. Very excited about that. I might even squeeze in a little bit of golf. You never know. But at the very least, I'll provide some photos and videos. So make sure that you're following along on our social media channels. You know the drill. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Also, if you want to check out any of the previous episodes, make sure you go to thebackoftherange.com. So I did a little Cyber Monday deal on Instagram to blow out some of the trucker hats and the towels that I still have lying around. If you didn't see that deal, so you get a trucker hat of your choice, 2 towels, one for you and one for a friend, and one of our custom logo metal ball markers. So if you missed this deal, it was only $25. I'm going to leave it up for as long as possible. So go to the website, thebackoftherange.com/holiday deal. I'll put the link to this deal in the show notes of this episode, so go pick up some of that merch. Again, $25 gets you all set up, and I'll keep it up there as long as everything is still in stock. All right, special episode this week, a different episode. Our guest is Ryan Crysler. He's the senior instructor at the Butch Harmon School at the Floridian here in South Florida. So one of the facts about hosting your own podcast is that you never know who might be listening. You can see a bunch of statistics, but it's hard to tell who's listening, where they're listening from, and in this case, their involvement in the game of golf. You know, some are scratch players. We got some 30 handicappers, coaches, casual fans of golf. In this case, it's an instructor. And not just any instructor. Ryan is at the Floridian. If you don't know about this place, you should, because this is where Rickie, DJ, Brooks, they all work on their game there. Claude Harmon started the school along with his father Butch about 10 years ago, and Ryan Crysler has been there as well, working with some of the top players in the game for nearly a decade. Now, if you're thinking that I just called it the Floridian and invited myself up for the day, no, that's not exactly how this happened. See, Ryan's actually been listening to the podcast for quite some time, and if you remember the Brady Expert episode, well, Brady's a member at the Floridian, so I guess you know how that connection was made. This episode was recorded the day after Thanksgiving. I took a ride up to the Floridian, and truthfully, I just expected to record Ryan's interview, maybe take a look around, and call it a day. But Ryan suggested that since I came all this way, I should experience a little bit of what his students get to experience every day. So he ran me through a 2-hour session. First, I warmed up on the grass at the back of the range, of course. Then went into the hitting bay where he strapped some sensors and I hit some balls in there. Then Josh Little, their on-site physical therapist, well, he took me into the fitness studio, and it's a really humbling experience when you're trying to do these agility and mobility exercises, and you look up at your instructor and they're kind of saying, is that all? Is that the best you can do? So after I got through that, we actually went outside. I started hitting balls again. And this is when the lesson and the advice actually started. You went through about an hour and a half before any words of advice and instruction was even given. So they're that thorough with what they do. Well, after a few tweaks to my posture and my grip, I was actually hitting the ball a lot better. So it was an absolutely fantastic day. Have to thank Ryan and Josh, head pro Morgan Jewell, the entire staff at the Floridian for making me feel welcome at the Flow. So let's get the episode started. Enough of me. Let's get to Ryan. So Ryan, welcome to the back of the range.
Great to have you here.
This is I mean,
nice easy day.
I mean, yeah, the podcast title, The Back of the Range, and here we are right at the back of the range of the Floridian.
Inside this learning center is pretty nice little back of the range.
I'm looking around. You have every Cameron putter. I'll post some photos of this, but this literally could be just a Cameron eBay outlet store. I mean, we won't tell titles. They wouldn't like that too much. Probably not. But there's just a massive amount of gear and cameras and hitting bays, and we'll post some pictures of that later and get the full scope. But you are the senior director of instruction alongside with Claude Harmon here at the Floridian. You both started actually at Austin Golf Club.
Yeah.
So before we get to that start, I kind of want to walk back and get an idea of how you get to that point, which launches your career that takes you from there to here and seeing the best players in the world walk in on a day-to-day basis saying, hey, can you look at this?
Yep.
Okay, so obviously, how did you start playing golf? When did golf become such a fixture in your life?
I started playing golf when I went to, my dad worked for EDS, which is Ross Perot's company. They bought EDS, or GM, General Motors bought EDS. And we moved to England for a couple of years. And the American school that I went to had a golf course there, a little 9-hole golf course. And that's where we really started playing a lot more golf, despite the weather there.
Okay.
I did a couple of junior clinics, like the Tom Kite Junior Clinic back in Austin. I never really played tournaments until late 80s, early 90s. But that's where I played a lot. It's about a half-hour drive from our house, and we would just go out there. It was a nice, easy, short course. And then my parents were members at Fox Hills, too, and I probably took maybe one lesson there, but I don't remember ever playing that course, which is outside of London. But that's kind of where it started. It started in England.
Okay.
Pretty interesting.
And how did you transition? Now, you played golf at SMU.
Yep.
And I think it's so fascinating that you're an instructor and your coach at SMU was Hank Haney.
Yep.
So your college golf experience, did you kind of were you in the mode of like, I'm going to turn professional? That's where I want to go.
No.
Oh, okay. No.
Okay. My college golf experience was pretty short. It was about a semester and a half, or a year and a semester.
Okay.
My whole rationale for that was I really wanted to be an FBI agent. And I just decided that I really wanted to play golf. And obviously we were here, I ended up choosing golf. But most of my high school and all of my college career, the main focus was to be an FBI agent. I'd always been a fan of those shows on TV, Homicide, FBI Files, X-Files,
sure.
For sure. That was huge, late or early 90s. So really didn't have any friends that are in the FBI, or I didn't really have parents or friends that were police officers, but I always liked the police and the FBI because I just wanted to go out there and solve puzzles and crimes and do all that stuff.
Okay.
So I had kind of an investigative type of mindset, I guess you will. And in college, I discovered one of my professors in college, Joe Kabilke, still there. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I probably should. Political science professor. My degrees were political science and psychology.
Right.
I got my psychology degree basically my senior year. I had nothing left to do in poli-sci, so I just went to the psych department, knocked out a degree in about a year. And in a year, basically, taking 21 hours a semester. And you usually don't do that during senior year, but I knocked it out. And during the time, late 90s, terrorism wasn't a big deal. And so I really wasn't focused on being an FBI agent to focus on terrorism. It was mostly wherever I would go, maybe accounting, maybe business. But the real thing I really liked was the profiling aspect of it. And that's why I got a psych degree, because I discovered the original, I guess you could say, FBI profiler was John Douglas. And he put out a couple books that I read, and I was just fascinated how you could look at a crime scene and get a suspect using his system. Mm-hmm. And he was pretty spot on. And it was pretty interesting. So that's what I wanted to do. And so I went to college to do that. And golf and doing all that work in college didn't mesh. I was also not that good of a golfer. Hank Haney did a favor for me. I could have gone to like Division III, like Washington Lee. I really wanted to go there. I thought about coming here to Tampa or just Florida in general, just staying in the warm weather.
Sure.
But I really wasn't that good, and basically until 2006 or so. But I was around a lot of good golf, and Hank Haney just really gave me a walk-on opportunity. I was already at SMU on a scholarship. It was still a great time. I probably should have spent more time on the team, but I just decided going into that sophomore spring semester that I needed to be more focused on my FBI pursuit.
Now your degrees make complete sense to me, because I knew you had the poli-sci and the psych degree. And
I'm not a business guy.
Not a business guy.
I've always been almost like despite I have a little IT background too, just on my own, but I just like solving stuff.
And of course, this leads right into the golf swing.
Yep.
And you mentioned profiling, so you can see when players are lying to you or lying to themselves.
Sure.
Or you can see when you can get more out of them. You can see really what their fears are.
Yep.
So you're getting these degrees for this one purpose. I want to be an FBI agent. But now you're using these degrees for something else. When did it click into, I want to be an instructor? Like, when did that point of like, okay, I don't want to be an FBI agent anymore. What else can I do? Well, I play golf, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm a golf instructor.
Yep.
So when did that start to click and say, okay, this might be an opportunity for me?
I would say I tried to play pro golf for a while too. So I had a real job for a while. I was in Medicaid in California. My job basically, since I was a bit of an IT guy, I wrote some software programs and I knocked out my job within the first couple of months I was there.
Okay.
So I shifted to, which is basically Medicaid. My role was on the IT side in the claims department.
Okay.
So California, pretty much the biggest Medicaid account in the state. So you have a ton of claims coming through, a ton of forms, all that stuff. Back then we were still scanning them and then transferring automatically to computers and stuff. Mm-hmm. But so I wrote this program, knocked out my job. It took the guy I replaced took like all week to do our job, which was basically reports.
Sure.
And essentially reports, Excel sheets like that. So I was able to solve that and have everything done by Monday for whoever needed these reports. There were claims adjusters and examiners and fraud department over here. And that's what kind of led me to doing some more fraud type stuff, because the fraud department was just right next to my cubicle, basically one cubicle over. And I was doing that for a while, having a good time. But in 1999, that summer, Paul Lawrie won the British Open.
Yes, he did.
And who the hell is Paul Lawrie? And so that kind of got my juices flowing again. It's like, man, if he can do this, I can do this. So I converted my shift basically from 5 to about 2 o'clock, so 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. It was a 24-hour shift basically to run Medicaid for every state back then, because you just have so much paperwork and so many claims. So I just told my boss at the time, hey, can I just come in with the morning shifts? And I just did all my stuff in the mornings there and knocked it out. And so I had afternoon off basically, and I spent some time trying to work on my game.
Probably would have been the same thing if Vandevelde won too, because you would have said, who the hell is John Vandevelde also?
Sure. Yeah.
Interesting.
Sure. So I got my juices flowing. I probably shouldn't have turned pro as early as I did and tried to play more tournaments, but I went ahead and turned pro and wasn't very good. Came down here in Florida, 2001 season, did the Golden Bear Tour.
Golden Bear Tour. Oh, yeah.
Just got
the crap kicked out of you, didn't you?
every day.
Yeah.
Every day of the week.
Let's see. Brad Adamanis, Adam Armagast.
Ken Duke. Hiroshi Matsuo. He was the big guy at that time.
Okay.
He pretty much won every other week. But Ken Duke was on that tour for a little bit too.
Yeah. Who's now one of your students.
Yeah, I work with him a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm more learned from him than anything, But we do some wedge work and some short game type stuff we can. But yeah.
So yeah, that tour, that's one of the last mini tours, developmental tours that existed where guys could actually make some money and at the end of it say,
yes.
hey, I put some money away. I didn't just spend all my money on entry fees and gas and food and stuff like that. I mean, that and the Hooters tour.
Yes.
Really kind of one of the last ones there. That.
And then I play the Tightlights tour as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Which is now an APT, I think.
Yeah. Gary DiSerrano runs
still
the
doing
APT.
it.
Yep.
He was doing it when I was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But back to your original question, how did I become an instructor? Well, I played for a while, played terribly for a while, and I just went back home to Austin and started working at Austin Golf Club. Still kind of just your basic shop assistant guy on the track to being a head professional type of role. And I was around Ben Crenshaw all the time. So still kind of intermediate, kind of trying to play section type stuff, still working, 60 hours a week, having a great time. The early days at Austin Golf Club were fantastic. And then what kind of pushed me to teaching, back to your original question, is the club hired Claude in the summer of 2005. He had been basically on the European tour for several years, working with top players, and he wanted to reestablish his roots in the U.S. And through our relationship with Titleist, we were a pretty big Titleist account at the time, and we interviewed a bunch of people, I think. The GM did, and we just settled on Claude. It was pretty much a no-brainer,
So you're at Austin Golf Club, and you're around Ben Crenshaw.
Yep.
Claude walks in, and now you're off to the races. What was your learning curve being around guys like Ben Crenshaw? Obviously the Harmon family is, we can make arguments about what the first family of golf instruction is. They're obviously in that conversation.
Yep.
This isn't just a teaching pro at some club getting $50 an hour teaching, the nice little ladies you're thrown into the fire here, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Austin Golf Club had a lot of top players, a lot of good local amateur type players. Ben was around too, so that was pretty cool. Learning from him.
Just standing on the putting, you just watch him putt all day, couldn't you?
Whenever he would practice hard, he would practice putting. He'd have 8802s. You couldn't tell what was different.
Okay.
He could tell you what's different between each one. But he did a lot of putting practice, and the only time I saw him really hit balls was when he was testing irons, like a new set of irons, or maybe 10 balls to warm up and go play. He barely even warmed up to go play. But when he practiced, it was just putting.
Okay, so that's very enlightening for people listening to this podcast, because when you think of Ben Crenshaw, you think that he just rolls out of bed, has coffee and a sandwich, and that putting stroke is always there waiting for him because it's so natural.
Yep,
so
he worked a lot on that putting stroke. He worked a lot on trying to find the shaft that he originally had in that putter, because he broke it, I think accidentally. He broke it several times, but he was never able to find that shaft that he loved the feel of. And so all these putters had different shafts. He reshafted his original putter 100 times, if not more, since I've been here. And so the chrome was burned off, and it was pretty wild. And he'd always search some shops in Austin for old bullseye shafts and stuff just to try to find that right feel. And he would tell you, this shaft is kicking this way and this shaft is kicking this way. And nobody ever talks about flex in their putter shaft.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I can't feel a difference. I'm not that good.
And you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, but sure, you're Ben Crenshaw. I believe you.
But the learning curve was there for sure. Claude walked in 2005. I'd been there for a couple of years. I'd gone to TPI in 2004.
Okay.
And those two guys are still my very responsible for my teaching career, Greg Rose and Dave Phillips. I talked to Greg probably more often than Dave, but the whole TPI system, he's thinking about profiling a golfer. I don't know how people can teach without taking their players through a screen, because you understand what their body can do. And if you tell them to do this and they can't do it, well, most likely they physically can't do it.
Sure.
So, but yeah, that learning curve was fast. And but by the 2006, I told Alec, the president at the time, and Joe, the GM at the time, that I'm going to leave the shop and stand outside with Claude all day and learn and teach as much as I can. And so I did.
So you spent a lot of time. So that was your education. I mean, obviously you went through the PGM program in your Class A, and you had, but at the time you probably weren't.
I started the PGM program.
Okay.
I didn't finish it.
Really?
I just used the TPI guys.
So you're having to learn this as you go. So let me ask you, what was the first golf lesson or session that you led with either Claude or Butch watching you, where you felt, okay, this is maybe a sink or swim moment here?
You know, I'm not even sure if, I don't think Butch has ever really watched me teach like for an hour.
Okay. It's
been like 5-minute snips here and there. I had him work out with, I had him help a kid, Todd Green, who's probably listening, maybe a couple of years ago. And we were working on some stuff, and Butch came in and delivered his 2-minute take, and it was basically the same stuff, just a different way.
Sure.
And probably a more effective way, just trying to get him off his right side, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I don't sit here and we don't have a executive meeting once a week with Claude discussing how we're teaching. They've been very hands off, you know, very inspiring for sure. If you saw the wall out there, but when I'm with Claude, he's usually driving the ship, and I'm there to assist. And it's probably been like that since 2005. And then we've shared some players back and forth for sure, and we've taught people maybe a month or a year apart, and we typically come to the same conclusion. You saw Claude out there earlier. Claude is very dramatic and very loud, and I'm very soft-spoken and very, I wouldn't say, I guess maybe I'm very soft-spoken, but I don't use too many words, and I'm not out there preaching. And I wait till I come up with my suggestion, and it may be 20 minutes in or maybe 5 minutes in, but.
Well, it's interesting because you're saying that about Claude. So is it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is it possible that there are players that come here that worked with Claude for a while, worked with you for a while, and,
that's happened.
And say like, okay, I like maybe the softer spoken delivery of the information from you as opposed to maybe the dramatic or the more.
Claude, if Claude wasn't teaching, he'd be an actor.
Okay.
He's fantastic. He is so talented. I've always been like a chief of staff guy, behind the desk guy.
Yeah.
You know, analytical to a degree, just kind of soft spoken. I would say very laid back for sure, because I'm from Texas, just laid back. But my delivery is pretty short and concise, and hopefully it's effective. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I'm not a big storyteller, and the Harmons are great storytellers, and that's kind of part of their charm.
You're holding your own. You're single digit. You know, we're not scratch yet, but you're single digit.
I got a psych degree. I'm usually listening to people.
I know.
You know, I'm never on the couch.
What when I was looking at different clips of Butch or Claude teaching. You know, there's this one YouTube clip up there. It's from here, and
we did a lot of stuff early. Haven't done much since.
Okay, so it's Butch and Claude teaching a young player about teaching about chipping. That thing has over 1.3 million views.
I checked that out the other day because I figured you would.
Uh-huh.
I was pretty surprised by that.
Well, okay, so that's perfect because I'm bringing that up because everyone is so thirsty for tips and tricks from the best. You see the impact of social media. You see the impact of the internet. IT background. You're well aware of what's going on. Do you try? You said you don't put as much stuff out anymore.
Back in my old job, I did. We did a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Me and a guy named Spencer, who now works for Titleist.
Okay.
Worked for Scotty Cameron, and now he works for the club side of things. We had our own show on YouTube, and it was basically kind of modeled after Gary Vaynerchuk, trying to do something cool.
So you're a Gary Vaynerchuk fan?
Huge fan.
Me too.
I would say because Claude left at basically the fall of 2006. He only spent about a year at Austin Golf Club, but learned a lot, was on my own then. So I needed to figure out ways to, get the name out there. And then Spencer came along about a year or so later, and we decided just to start filming things that we like to do. And a lot of it was about Titleist, and he was a big Scotty Cameron fan, so he had a ton of Scotty Cameron putters. And even 10 years ago, there was forums and videos and pictures of Scotty Cameron enthusiast. So that was kind of our in. And that kind of expanded to more of a show about a little bit about club fitting and club performance, and a little bit about TPI, and a little bit about fitness and little things like that, and promoted it on Facebook and Twitter. And it basically became, half my week was working on our show, and then half the week was actually teaching.
Right. So you're burning the candle to both ends, trying to.
Yep. And it was a lot of hours. It was 2008, 2009. I bought my first Mac, and it still took, for video, I don't know, it took probably a day to kind of put together something that was quality. Yeah. And then you had the whole audio part, and that's a whole other.
That's a whole other.
And that takes a while. You got to be at the right wind. And then Titleist actually sent us some good mics, so that was kind of cool. So we actually had a lavalier mic and a wind protector, so that was good. But so I've done that. Yeah, I did that 10 years ago. And a lot of promotion, a lot of Q&A, did some live stuff. But we never really posted swings and drills. We just kind of talked about, if this is what it's like for you, then this is what we're doing here.
Right.
And then, by the way, we're big Titleist fans. Here's the latest Titleist driver. And here's some great shafts we've been looking at. And Spencer's got this new Scotty Cameron putter. So that created a lot of interest. And we had people start flying in, and they'd come in for a club fitting, a lesson or two, or a couple hours there. And that kind of became a little bit of the business too. It's kind of almost the same kind of type of deal. The members are at Austin Golf Club. We're there to play and practice. And then on the weekends, maybe they get a lesson. But so during the week, Tuesday through Friday, I needed to do something. And we had people come in and fly in from Minnesota and England. And it was really cool. And they came in just to get fit. And then on top of that, we did some TPI stuff and fixed their movement pattern a little bit, gave them a couple things to think about swing-wise. And that was kind of my model down there teaching once Claude left.
So you come here to the Floridian with Claude. You guys set this up together.
He did most of the work. I came late.
Okay.
And that's also a good story.
That's what we do here.
The only reason I'm here is because Austin Golf Club burned down. It was a crazy Labor Day weekend. It was hot. It was really dry. And there was 4 major fires in Austin, and one of them pretty much took out the club. The one that was west of town and took out the club. Wow. And I think it was about a 300,000 acre fire over there. And I think it started by a guy who was just either welding something or just a simple accident. Mm-hmm. But the weird thing is that there was 3 separate fires, or four total fires. One in Bastrop that was pretty devastating, but nobody got killed. A lot of property damage. But I spent the month of September 2011 basically fighting fires and providing supplies I had a bunch of friends who were volunteer firefighters, and it took about a month, maybe more, to put every fire out. Wow. So I spent a month not working, not doing anything except talking to people, getting my members, getting my clients to help us get these firefighters water and Visine. That's really all they wanted, water and Visine. And that took about a month. And then it started kind of quieting down in October. And I was looking around at the club, and, the tee boxes and greens kind of survived because that was the only thing we were watering at the time, basically, because we were in a drought mode. And the clubhouse was saved. The cottages were saved. My little teaching center was saved. But you look around, the drive-in, it was devastated. So I had pretty much a turning point right there. It was like, there's no way I can really teach with all this going on. So I decided to stop teaching and was going to go back into IT. And another story is that George Strait was my last client at AGC.
Really?
So that was pretty cool. But that's how I got here. So I tried to find a bunch of jobs, and I tried to get my certifications back in line, and it didn't really work out. And then Claude just called me and said, actually, I was here in August that year just to see it. I was here in August. He told me all about it, and this was still in concrete blocks and stuff. And then I got the call probably sometime in November, and I came Sunday of Thanksgiving week, almost anniversary.
Wow.
This, I guess 9 years down.
And when you came down here and saw it then, this is, let's see, so
2011.
11. So this is right when actually the change of ownership happened.
Yep, that was 2010.
Jim Crane bought from Huizenga.
Yep.
So you come down here and you're thinking, like, what were you expecting coming down here?
Really, my only experience was going to Titleist and visiting the TPI in terms of a teaching center this comprehensive, which you're here now, right? So I just couldn't believe you would have this type of building. It's 4,500 square feet on the back of a practice tee with a great view and some water over here. And it's kind of turned into something really special, you know? So that's how I got here.
I think one thing that listeners would automatically assume, you teach at the Floridian, they're just going to assume that if you know, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Rickie Fowler, they just assume that if they're not on tour on TV, they're here all the time. And every day here spent, there's just tour players walking in and out. Because I think people are very fascinated. I'm fascinated with, like, what is the normal day-to-day for a tour player that's when they're not on TV?
Sure.
We don't really see them practice. I mean, you see them warm up in the range.
Yep.
And really, you don't see that all that often. I think
Yep.
that's why I think most people are so drawn to the Masters Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for that Masters on the range, because, oh my gosh, I get to watch these players. Yeah. I mean, that's tournament
prep too. That's still not day to day.
Right. But still, that's our only glimpse of what that looks like.
Which is very cool.
That's crack for me. I can watch that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday Masters on the range. Just don't show me anything else. I can just watch all that. Man, I can just start with any player. Maybe what was the first player that you started working with here that was your first entry into, okay, I'm not just teaching members, I'm teaching touring professionals where my input, my suggestions directly relate or directly affect their ability to earn a living?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably Peter Uihlein or Ken Duke were probably the first, top players. Right. Back in Austin, it was Joe Ogilvy for a little bit.
Yeah.
Just helped him just one day. And
does it get the heart rate going a little bit differently when you're...
No, it doesn't for me.
Doesn't for you.
To me, it's just another puzzle I got to solve, and I really don't get too amped up about it. I get amped for solving stuff.
Sure.
For sure. But yeah, it was probably Peter Uihlein. He was here early on. Ken Duke was here early on. Jim Harmon a little bit now and then. But I wasn't awestruck at all. No, I was more about solving whatever I needed to solve that day. But it was fun. It was fun.
And I'm guessing that the players probably like that more because they realize that you're there to work too.
Yep.
And and they don't want you to be all awestruck. They don't want you to be any different.
There's no fanboy out there. It's just, so here's Brooks walking in. I didn't know you were coming today. Yep, he's walking in. Here he is. I'll tell you, their day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, talking about, I'm very interested in what day-to-day stuff is.
There's so many differences between the day-to-day tour player, in my opinion, than the guys that were trying to get to the tour.
Okay.
Or the member trying to get better. And unfortunately, it's very boring because they work on the same stuff for the whole year. And they may tweak it a little bit during the season, but from what I've seen, it's the same stuff over and over again. And it's usually alignment, takeaway, and maybe get a little more on top of it. That's about it. And then they just do it for maybe 2 hours max and go play and throw in a workout, hour or so, and that's your 7 or 8 hour day. And sometimes they don't even play. Like Brooks doesn't really play that much. He's just kind of a practicer. I think DJ probably practices and play. And when we were working with Rickie, and I'm most intrigued by Rickie because he's like the most polished guy, I think, because he's probably been out there just as long as DJ, and he's got so many things going on. He's got his own production company, film company.
Sure.
He has so many sponsors on that bag and those shirts. So that
comes with complication. That comes with time commitments.
He manages it all. And that's what I was most impressed with, is like, he does this, he does that. And then on top of it, he's spending a real hard hour or so with Butch or with Claude. And that was it. Working on top of the swing. That's it. So I think that's really unique with Rickie. I don't think everybody has as many sponsors and his own company and all that time that takes off the golf course, especially during a tournament itself. I think it's amazing how good he is with all that. And it's part of his deal, part of his image. I think Brooks has a few sponsors, but he's not like Rickie. He's not out working on, a series on the Golf Channel. That's not kind of Brooks's personality. He's not yet. But, he helped with the Houston Open and helped us on that course too. So I think the real cool thing with Brooks, seeing him go from the first time I played with him here to now, is he's taken everything in stride. Hasn't changed one bit. He's just gotten bigger and stronger, and that's about it. And a little bit better.
just a little bit.
But it's generally so simple. And, none of those guys are searching YouTube like some of these Canadian Tour and Latin American guys and mini tour guys and members, just searching for something that works that day. And these guys are working on something that works all year. And they're playing 25, 30 events no matter what.
Right.
And they don't quit or they don't pull out of a tournament because they're playing bad. They're still playing. It's totally different. It's totally different. And we try to instill that in our juniors and our college players that, we're not guessing here. After all our analysis and Claude's experience, we think we know what we're doing. We're still learning, but you got to give it like a year to work on this change. And it may be fast or it may be slow, but you can't give up on it and try to find different ways to do the same thing. You can try to find different ways to do the same, but you can't change the overall goal for the year or the concept,
Do you feel that has changed more in maybe the last decade with the advent of social media, of YouTube, of
Well, there's guys making careers on YouTube.
Well, but also
sure.
I'm just thinking about, like, people want instant gratification.
Yep.
People more so, than ever. Like we were just talking about Gary Vaynerchuk. One of his big things is like, dude, I worked my ass off for 12 years and didn't do anything on YouTube.
Yep.
I worked at my dad's liquor store. Nobody knew who I was. I didn't talk. I didn't go out. I just worked.
Yep. So he's definitely inspiration.
Right.
Tim Ferriss is an inspiration. Simon Sinek is an inspiration for sure. There's a non-golf inspirations.
But how do you communicate to golfers now saying, look, you may have to do this for a year or two. You're not going to see any results. It's going to be frustrating as hell.
Hopefully it's not that long.
Okay. So,
but
it's, you're going to do something that
you got to stick to it.
Right. We're not getting a little Band-Aid thing or finding something on YouTube or
We've got all these tools. We use the TPI screen. We use K-Vest. I use K-Vest a lot.
Okay.
And which basically tells me how your swing works or doesn't work. It may be a quick fix and make it work that day, but it still hasn't settled in yet. And it still takes a tournament to have it settle in. And then it takes a stretch of tournaments, 3 or 4 in a row. Then it takes, how does it work when you're two back on the back nine, or you're playing in the lead group? How does that work? And I don't care if it's not happening in practice. I only care about if it's happening on the golf course. And in tournaments, I need more than 1 week to figure that out if it's working. I need like a series of 3 or 4 tournaments and come back. I need maybe a season of stats and info to say, this is the thing we worked on. We can see the improvement. We can see a drop off. I track everything. I got players on Birdie Fire. All of our juniors use Arcos. I got a bunch of players using Whoop now, which is a new thing that I've implemented. I'm trying to track everything and find the correlation, and it takes time. Our sport takes time. I'm not going to discount the YouTube stuff. I mean, some of it's good stuff. You can make a good career just being a social media internet instructor.
Yeah.
Where people send swings to you, and it could be something you do during the winter if you're up north. So I'm not discounting it. It's just not how I like to do it. I like to see the player in person, and I don't care if if I'm missing out on $300,000 a year because I'm not taking videos online, then so be it. I'm pretty happy here, and I got a house right down the street. I'll be all right.
I think you're doing okay. George Gankus.
I think he's cool.
Yeah.
He's making golf cool, man. I haven't met him. I know Claude's met him. I've seen Matt Wolf play in our tournament. I would say it's probably why he's up on that list is Matt Wolf.
Is it the methods that he's using, or is it the delivery method?
Everything.
It's everything.
I think if you're going to be a top instructor, it certainly helps to have your star, Jordan Spieth,
Sure.
Matt Wolf, Dustin Johnson. You're going to be up there. But like I think what makes Butch and Claude so good is they have it's like you're going in for a show. It's going to be a little drama. It's going to be a little comedy, but they keep you entertained. It's not my particular style, but, and I'm not trying to be on the top of the list or anything like that. I'm just trying to solve.
You're one of the best instructors in the state. Golf Digest says so.
That's what they say. I appreciate it.
I mean, come on.
But, I still get hired and fired, every day too. But,
can you see it coming when you're getting fired?
Usually. Yeah.
Just the vibe isn't there, or they're just, is it more so that they're disagreeing with what you're saying, or they, there's got to be numerous reasons that you've had to experience that.
Well, I've got guys that are in packages that I value a lot. And we probably do maybe 2 packages a season. And that's going to be, call it on paper, maybe 20 hours, but there's usually a lot more in between.
Sure.
Because I'm studying their tournaments, talking to them during tournaments. But yeah, it's either the package is running out, they're not going to renew, and they haven't seen much progress. It's been 3 or 4 days or 3 or 4 times they've here, and we're still trying to fix the same problem. So, and I'm trying to find ways to maybe communicate it differently. And I'm fact checked with their stats from the rounds, and sometimes it's a good thing, where we get fired and they go seek another.
And it clicks and they're happy and yeah.
Totally fine with that, totally fine with that. And then sometimes, players just leave and never come back. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing, maybe we solved it and they're done. And that could be it. I did some work with Dominic Bizzelli earlier this season. And I think we did some great work, and he's a great guy. We've talked a little bit now and then, but he hasn't come in and we haven't solved anything. Just haven't fixed anything in the last few months or so. But I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have any enemies out there for sure. I'm not saying if you're not going to work with me and then that's it, delete, that's
right.
not how it works, because sometimes they'll come back. You never know.
I was going to ask you, you're constantly asking your students to improve and to work hard. You're trying to challenge them. How do you challenge yourself on a day-to-day or week-to-week or year-to-year basis? What kind of goals do you set for yourself?
Well, I don't really set goals. I'm not a goal setter.
Okay.
I'm not a goal setter. No matter how much people want me to write down the stuff you want to accomplish, I've tried. It doesn't really work for me. So what I do, I kind of sit down in July instead of January, and the time where I go on vacation, family vacation, it's relatively quiet around here. Everyone's playing tournaments or on vacation themselves. And that's where I decide, what am I going to think on, what I'm going to work on for the next coming year. And I just try to come up with a theme. So a couple of years ago, it was just, we're going to work on our same stuff, but how are we going to deal with adversity? So that was the theme for the year. So the guys on packages, the guys I work with a lot, I would create adverse conditions and how do we deal with it? And then last year, I guess currently still, was basically management. And I did a lot of this with the high school team I used to coach. I'm going to give you your schedule. We're going to have a tournament or two every 2 or 3 weeks, or every 2 or 3 days in high school golf. There's no time to change anything. We need to take the best of what we got and make sure it's the best of what we got every tournament. And how do we manage that? So I worked on management. I'm still working on management. That's kind of one, I think, like I said with Rickie earlier, that's one of the key differentiators. They're able to manage their time in practice and at tournaments. And I've kind of found people on both ends. Some people are grinders, and they kind of grind themselves to death. And so by the time they tee it up on Thursday, they're out of gas. Right. And then some players are just, they can't manage the day-to-day stuff, don't know what to work on, don't have any idea of what to practice, don't know how to game plan before a tournament round. So I'll work on all that stuff. I give you, here's our list of drills. That's all you're doing every day. So maybe it's a chipping drill, a putting drill, and a full swing drill. It may not even be that much. Maybe some players, I give them a ball count. It's like, you're only going to do this 60 balls.
Okay.
And that creates a whole different type of practice and pressure. Some players just need to go out and play. And so we come up with games and we'll play on the course. So
okay.
Back to your original question.
No, you're fine because you're just opening up more questions for me because I
do try to have a theme every year.
Okay.
And I haven't decided what my theme's going to be coming up, but it's usually what I think players need, and it's usually outside of golf or outside of the golf swing, I should say. It's something about how they're practicing, how they're eating. I've done a lot of stuff with Whoop in the company, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So I just started doing this for, I guess it's been about a couple months now, seeing what we can correlate. I want all the evidence, basically. I want all
You're a numbers
the data.
guy. You want.
I've always been a numbers guy.
Yeah.
Just trying to find the correlation. Are we doing something good here? Are we not doing something good here? Are we missing out something here? Can we find something that we're missing? Little things like that. But I'm also trying to learn every day. I try to schedule something for an hour every day to learn. It's usually a podcast. It might be an article. But I try to do like the 4 o'clock hour, 4 to 5, as something I try to learn something every day. And I listen to Cameron McCormick's podcast, listen to Gary Vee, Tim Ferriss. I probably have a bunch I'm forgetting on my phone, but listen to your podcast for sure.
Hey.
Try to learn as much as I can from Brady Expert and Skip Berkmeyer and those type of guys. But that's the other thing, with tour players, I'm still trying to learn as much as possible.
Well, mid-ams and senior ams that are trying to balance all the things with their life and still play that high-level amateur golf is...
Like Brady, I try to learn something from him every time, I'm not charging him for lessons. He should be charging me. He's not down here that often, but when he is, man, it's just he's like my favorite member, no offense to any other members listening. I kind of coined the term top 5 member. He's a top 5 member. And I say that to more than 5 members, but you're a top 5 member. And Brady is like one of the nicest guys ever. Great golfer. I have never beaten him. And I'm still trying to learn from him too. But I think if I'm not learning, then I got a problem.
Okay, so let me backtrack on a couple of things I want to hit on. So you're talking about game planning for, your year, game planning for a player.
Yep.
How do the players here, whether it's Rickie, DJ, Brooks Koepka, maybe something that listeners wouldn't know, like game planning for a major? Can you speak to maybe what goes into that as far as whether it's changes to their practice, changes to equipment? Is there, do you all get together? Is there a meeting between Claude and Rick? I mean, how can you maybe walk me through maybe one example? I know you can't go through every single player. It's all different, but
specifically with Brooks, I know what he does. He rents a house, number one, for a major.
No, I'm sorry. I was talking about more like...
Well, this is part of the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm talking about like here before they get there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a few shots. We can maybe tune up the course, make the greens faster.
Okay.
But I would say they still stick to what their core concepts are for swing. And then maybe, you're trying to work on the number 13 tee shot at Masters. Maybe the rough at the U.S. Open. We don't have much rough here anyway. Little things like that. But I would say, with Brooks, the plan starts months in advance, renting that house, bringing in the chef, bringing in his close buddies. And it's usually during the week, it's all about rest for him. And I think that's one thing he's learned is he doesn't need to grind it out for 10 hours a day. He always practices after the round. He has a short, sweet warm-up, does some physio, and he usually has a late tee time Saturday, Sunday, so he has a big workout in the morning. Mm-hmm. And it's not rocket science, but it took him a while to figure it out, I think, probably 3 or 4 years as a professional. And then, Now everybody else is trying to rent a house and bring in their own chef and trying to steal his chef and coming over for dinner at their place. So that's pretty neat. It's pretty neat to see what they do for a major. And then a regular event, it's usually at the hotel, or it's like if you're at the match play in Austin, it's at the W, or it's not quite the same routine. And Brooks is big into his major routine. And it's pretty cool to hear what Claude says about the week, and it's pretty cool to hear what chef made for the week. And, in terms of game planning, I can be real in-depth and technical on a game plan, but if a player tries to just kind of freewheel it during the round, that's fine too. But you got to have some basics. And I would say like the DJ version of the game plan is he's going to find out what clubs he's hitting off his tee, and that's going to be it. He pretty much has confidence that he can hit out of any situation, any bad lie, any bad spot on the green, no problem. And so what I really do with especially the kids is just teach them ways to plan their round despite how they're playing their round, and plan their round despite how they're hitting it. Okay. And with Arcos, you can really do it easily because it has a preview mode of your stats and how you can overlay your best stats no matter what course you're playing that day. And it tells you which tee shots, which clubs to use on the tee shots, everything. It tells you what club you'll have expected in the fairway, what club you'll have expected into the green, your percentage of missing it. It's all there. So we can take it to that extreme or try to find something in the middle. But you got to have some sort of prep, and you can't just show up. You can't just not have any food in your bag. You can't just not have a water bottle. You can't just show up and expect all that to be there, and it's typically not.
Right.
And now you're struggling with that, and that's going to, whether it takes one or two focus points away from you, it's going to be one or two shots, and then now you're upset. And I'm sure you saw players at the Rolex this week, kids that can't handle it, and it's a roller coaster, and that's one tournament. So try to do that 25 times a year plus. Yeah. It's not going to work. So
well, that was one thing that I believe it was Brady or some of the other mid-ams and seniors. They say these college kids or these juniors, they may have the swing and they may have the length.
They don't know how to play,
but they don't know how to play yet.
They don't know how to manage.
And all it takes is them to miss a 3-footer or stub a chip, and they're gone. Mentally, it's all over.
It's all gone for the whole week, maybe. And I did a lot of that with the high school team that I used to coach. We would have Wednesday afternoon at school in the library planning the rounds, reviewing the rounds, just trying to help them, not if they used it, just trying to help them recount their round. They would present their round. And so from a public speaking aspect, that was fantastic because that's one skill that kids don't have these days. And then, just going through the motions, just telling us what you hit. I'd have the guy who won usually go first, and the guy who shot 90 go last, And so hopefully the guy who shot 90 learned something from the guy who shot, 1 under. But it takes a lot to play this game, man. And it's not just swing. You can be perfect out there, but I guarantee you you might have one perfect shot on the course for the whole week. I mean, Brooks and DJ have talked to Claude, and he's talking with me, and I've been around Brooks too. They may have 3 or 4 rounds a year that they really feel good about, and they're playing 30 times a year.
And they're the best in the world, and you're saying maybe there's a tournament's worth of rounds.
Yep.
That they're like, man, I played good today.
And Brooks said this the other day is we were working with Jack O'Donnell, one of our juniors. Once you learn that you can get over this stuff really quickly, you're going to be a better player, and that's pretty simple, but true. Here's Jack, who's a great player in himself, but he's still one of those teenagers who might get hot out on the golf course.
Well, I always imagine that the problem is that they get that level of success, or they realize really early that they can be great, but they also still haven't figured out a way to accept the fact that you're not always going to be that great.
Nope, not at all. So I just gotta. I think that might be going back to our previous conversation. I'm really trying to find the formula for the week for these guys. What does it take for the week for you to play your best? And I'm not talking the day. I'm talking the week. Is the workout in the morning better for you? Is it after the round? You need to grind Tuesday. There's a Pro-Am Wednesday or Tuesday. You need to play in that. You get extra money for that. Do you not need to play in that Pro-Am? Could you play in the Monday Pro-Am and maybe grind it Tuesday? I don't know, whatever it is, it's going to be different for everybody, but I'm trying to really find that formula. And I think Whoop's been helping me with that for a little bit, and I hope to keep learning from that. But that's the biggest difference is these guys on tour, they have a 30, 40 week sometimes season, and these juniors have 7 tournaments a year maybe, 3 in the fall, maybe 3 in the spring, maybe call it 10, 3 in the summer, 10 to 13. And if you're really good, you're playing more. And you can't have that roller coaster round. You just have to learn how to accept it and move on.
What is the most cringeworthy thing you see on a driving range? And I'm not talking about here. I'm talking about in general. If you're ever at a driving range or at a club, whatever, and you see the typical member, what's the thing that you're like, gosh, why is that still a thing? Why do they keep doing that?
I know one thing that pisses me off is the headphones.
Okay.
Listening to music or whatever with the headphones. I don't mind if you're out there on the course with the speakers going. That's fun. That's cool.
You're not working out there. That's right.
When you're grinding with your speaker, with your headphones in, and I don't know what you're listening to, but you got to be able to listen to that ball. So that kind of pisses me off. That's one of my pet peeves for sure.
Don't like that.
But cringeworthy on the practice tee, the guys get mad on the practice tee. That's just ridiculous.
Yep.
Just take it easy.
I got a friend that broke an entire set of irons on a practice range.
Ridiculous. He wouldn't be my friend for long.
Snapped him over his leg, and I was like, okay.
But the other thing, maybe philosophy-wise, just hammering balls for an hour or two, one club, same target. Try not to do that. It's very easy to do that in this sport.
Sure.
Some players, like the grinders for sure. This one kid I work with, Josh Hart, he's a grinder, man. So I've had to tell him to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't need to be out there 8 hours. At some point, there's a level of effectiveness that starts decreasing. Of course. You know?
Well, the body can't keep doing,
So try to break it up for sure. So maybe it's a time. Actually, I did one thing with him was I put him on a time count one time and a ball count the other time. We just try to find out, what's more effective. We did a time count on the putting green. So he has a bunch of drills that he does. So I just, instead of just having him make basically your circle drill around a hole, like 4, 6, 8, 10 feet,
sure.
10 balls. He tries to get through all of them. And then I just said, well, why don't we just time this? I'm going to give you 5 minutes. How many putts can you make in these 5 minutes? And see where we're at. Instead of trying to start over if you miss one. But put yourself on a time limit, 30 putts or 30 minutes. Put all your drills down in 30 minutes and then get out of there, Go play. Go find something else. Take a 15-minute break.
You're talking about improving someone's golf game, and it's almost like you're talking about it in a way of a personal trainer or a nutritionist, or like a physical therapist. Like, we need to get a plan together to rehab this quote-unquote injury.
That's where I think is my unique selling proposition, if you will.
Because I feel like, we're talking golf, but it almost feels like you're trying to explain, like, look, I'm trying to diagnose I don't want to say illness, but you're diagnosing a problem and we can't fix it overnight. So let's get steps put in place to fix it.
Yeah. I mean, on my website.
And most people don't do that. Most amateurs, most players don't do that. I mean, the people you see do that. I'm talking about the 15 handicapper that's listing right now, or the 5 handicapper or whatever. But to get to that next point, you're feeling that you have to have this.
Yes. You have to have everything.
Yeah. Is this more important than getting the newest driver and the most expensive shaft? And
probably
got to be fit. Yep. I mean, I know I'm not talking about, you got to be properly fit. I can't walk in and get a senior flex shaft because that's not going to fit me. But I can have 7-year-old irons that fit me and a 7-year-old driver that fits me. And my old trusty rusty 8802 with the shaft that we don't know what the flex is, but I'd be just fine compared to someone that has the top of the line equipment, but I have the game plan and they don't.
You'd be better off long run for sure. Yeah, my website says I'm a trusted coach to tournament players and professional, collegiate, amateur, and junior golf. And that's pretty much all it says, and a few other things. And Nothing about.
Yeah, you didn't have a lot of bio information. I couldn't. You weren't easy to research.
Yeah, good.
Oh, okay. Well, that's that FBI thing. You're trying to keep it all hidden.
That's right.
All right.
I really rely on word of mouth.
Yeah,
that's my big thing nowadays since I've been here.
Okay, so
I think that's kind of the situation because we've got the big B on the wall, and we've got Claude here.
Yeah.
Claude grew basically Brooks from guy who missed Q school into the number one player in the world, so that has some traction.
Yeah.
I don't need to go out and pontificate on Twitter or Instagram.
Well, if it's not you, it's not you.
It's not my deal.
Yeah.
I tried it for a while, had a good time doing it, but I think I'm a more effective coach now because I'm not spending my time doing it. I'm working on Whoop. I'm working on, but I'm trying to be a little more holistic for sure.
Okay. So let's talk about one of, we mentioned these juniors, we mentioned these players. One of the people we've had on the podcast earlier this year won a US four-ball.
Previous guest recap.
Talk to me about Garrett Barber, one of your students.
He was a gift, man.
You were his coach at the Pine School
right?
When you're coaching high school golf. One season, then you're working with him here.
A little bit during his junior career, a couple times for clubs, but his coach is Martin Hull.
Okay.
Again, Garrett was a gift. I walk into a high school team and you basically have a top 5 junior in the world. He became number 1 during that summer going into my first season coaching. So he was a total gift. And I basically told Garrett, whatever you need to do, just do it and don't worry about the team. All I needed to play in was 5 events to be eligible for the state championship. Mm-hmm. So we got that done. I think he mainly played in 6. But yeah, Garrett, when I saw him, when he was working on the team with me, he was the example that I tried to build the whole program around because he basically carried himself like a tour player. He did everything that I see that's in common with a Brooks or a DJ that I see Claude with. He has his things that he works on, goes about his business. That's it. He's got his little Dave Pell's putting tutor. He does a couple things with the swing, with the, I forget the name of it, but it's basically a tetherball between his arms and keeps his arms connected. That's it. That's all I worked on. Went out, became a state champion, playing at LSU. And he had a great freshman year. Not so good sophomore, junior year, but probably because he was growing so fast. That's typically the case. Got it back together senior year. Just tore through that summer and fall of his senior year. Played on the President's Cup team. So I try to learn as much as I can from him for sure. And that was one thing that I built around the team for that year and the next year is you got to have some sort of plan that you do every week. So here's our schedule. This is what we're doing. That's it. And if you're there, you're there. If you're not, you're not. If you're late, fine. You're late. Garrett's going to be here. He's going to be well ahead of you anyway. How do you expect to catch up to him? But he was great. And I coached, he made it to the state championship. The team did it that year and I helped him play on one hole that week. He hit it left in the woods and I think it was 13 and I told him to just chip it out the other hole that was alongside 13, I think it was. But whatever the case, he just put on a show that week. He dreamed of winning the state championship and he shot 69, 65. He was bogey free in that 65 and I think it was a record at the time. I think it may have been tied this year, actually. But I helped him one shot. And we did a game plan with him, for sure. He had his own game plan. I recorded every shot he hit because I use his template for Q School and players that have tournaments there because they have a lot of tournaments on that course. Yeah. And, that helped him one hole. He wanted to go through the trees. And I'm like, Garrett, just go up this other hole. Try to slice it around. He put it in the green side bunker in the far left and got up and down and saved his par. He's going to be a great player. He probably did a little freshman transition, what they always do in Division I.
Yep.
Except maybe if you're Matt Wolf, but he'll be doing great. I haven't seen what he's done this past semester, but I'm sure he's good. But yeah, he was a gift. And then Brady Expert, he's a gift. Learn as much as I can from him. Great leadership and he's just a golfer, man. And then Skip Berkmeyer too,
Oh, yeah.
He's a project, but, one of the things I do with Skip is I don't say anything until he asks. It's an old kind of psychological trick called the Adlerian pause, and I don't say anything because Skip's awesome. He doesn't need my help. So I just try to work on a few things with him, maybe posture. Went to the U.S. Amateur, saw him a little bit, didn't really say anything prior to the round. It was a strap show. I'm not.
Well, it's got to be inspiring and confidence building when your coach is just like, what am I going to say here?
Yeah. So that's one of my techniques for sure. Is sometimes I just do not say anything until they ask. And I think I never would give anybody a lesson without them asking it. And then if we're doing a lesson, it just depends on the situation. But if I make that play, I usually make it with Skip. And now I make it with Skip just to have fun with him. I just wait until they ask, because that's kind of part of the learning process. Is
we can't end the episode without at least one only at the Floridian story, like something that happens at the Floridian that, obviously, who's a member here. We have some people here that are well known and tour players, and you have your nice pro member term, presidents. I mean, you got So give me an example of just a random encounter or something you saw and you're thinking to yourself, really, this is where I work every day? Like, I come to work at this place?
Well, that probably happens every day.
Okay.
That's the kind of place it is, man.
Okay.
Like earlier this week, Kyle Berkshire walks in, played with one of our players on the course.
Okay.
You got Paris Linsky out there.
Yep.
Phenom. So I've been playing golf for 2 years. Already played in the U.S. Open. Already qualified for a U.S. Women's Open. We're almost kind of used to it. President Obama walks in every once in a while. As the president, pretty surreal. As a member, it's still pretty cool. As a president, you got 150 Secret Service guys and the Coast Guard and the Air Force up around. But it's pretty neat. And so the three of us, Butch, Claude, got to work with him a couple times. That was fantastic. I would have voted for Barack or I should say Mr. President, if I would have met him before, because he's just that cool of a guy.
Really?
And I think that's one thing you got to be with the president. If you're a president, you got to be a cool guy. You got to be able to win that crowd. So that was cool. Never would have thought he'd be that cool, but he was so cool. And I've met George W. too, being from Texas.
Sure.
And I met President Trump too. And everyone's been so genuine with me. Super nice. I met Trump at his club down south here, Trump International. He's fantastic. That was well before he was the president. Super nice guy. Made sure we were all good. And we were there on Thanksgiving, actually. He was in customer service mode all day.
Interesting.
It's pretty neat. But yeah, every day at the Flow, there's always something. It only happens at the Flow that you have a president over here who was here a couple weekends ago. You got the long drive champ. You got the number one player in the world. You got maybe the hottest junior golfer girl in the world. That only happens here. And so I'm very grateful and thankful to be here, because there's really no other place that's better than this. If you're a golf instructor, this is it. So I better not screw things up.
Well, I don't think you have, and I think that's a perfect place to wrap up the episode, and I hope we can do it again.
Yeah, we'll do it again, for sure.
Yeah, this is very enlightening. I think a lot of people listening, because you're one of the first instructors I think I've had on the podcast.
We talked a little golf, but we still didn't talk swing.
We didn't talk swing.
All
right, we'll do that for the next one.
No, we won't.
We won't. Okay, we're not talking swing. All right, well.
We talk some more.
We can talk more stories, but no swing.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, well, I appreciate it. We'll do it again soon, and thanks for stopping by the back of the range.
All right, thanks, Ben.
And there you have it. Special thanks to Ryan Crysler, Senior Instructor at the Floridian, for joining us this week. Don't forget, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Take advantage of that holiday deal, and we'll see you again next week for another episode here at the back of the range.